How much monitoring should you be doing? If you are not required to do monitoring, but you do it anyway, do you still have a responsibility to correct it? If so, how transparent do you need to be about that correction? And also, when is the use of links appropriate? Can you link to and from specific websites? What are the rules on deep linking, et cetera? And they also want to know information from the industry about what kinds, and I'm sure all of you in the room who are in marketing are really good at providing this kind of information, data and research on what users are actually doing out there on internet promotion. So I'm not going to go through internet adverse event reporting again. Will concrete guidance be coming? We don't know. What will pharma do in the interim? I think we're going to talk about that in a little bit, about the best ways to get your company primed and talk to your legal and regulatory folks and make them comfortable with the initiatives that you want to accomplish. One of the things that we're doing as a company is a lot of education. Again, we really have a variety of levels of understanding and uptake on social media. Again, I'm kind of an oddity in that I'm a lawyer who uses social media a lot. We have some who don't use it at all. And our commercial regulatory folks, none of them are on Twitter or Facebook or anything. They really are not heavy users of the internet. So what we're doing right now is we again have this social media working group, which is a cross-functional team of many parts of the company. We're doing kind of every 2 weeks sort of an educational presentation where we talk about different types of social media. We actually demonstrate it during the meeting so that they can learn more about it. And then, we're doing a lot of sort of monitoring silently. We're listening. We're trying to figure out what other companies are doing, and we'll talk about that again. John's wonderful wiki that he has regarding what other companies are doing so that, again, we can get our legal and regulatory folks more comfortable with what other companies are doing out there in a safe and compliant way. Again, listen to the buzz. You know what you're listening for. Figure out how you want to act on that and what you want to do with it. And be transparent about it. I think that's one of the things that is most important. And then also we're in the process of creating guidelines, social media policy for the company. I'm tasked with writing policies at my company, and I have to say that this is one of the more interesting ones because it's not your typical pharma company SOP. I know you guys have seen those. You have to go, read the 20 pages and click that you've acknowledged it. I think our social media policy is probably going to be about 3 pages. It's really sort of I don't want to say warm and fuzzy, but a much more theoretical and general type of guidance than the policy on how to do your expense report, for example. So again, and these are things that we're working on with our medical legal regulatory folks. They need to not be afraid of what's going on out there. I think the most dangerous thing about the conversation is if the conversation's going on without you and you're not participating in it. We want to get out there and be able to participate in a meaningful way that's helpful to our patients. But again, to do that in a compliant way. And then finally, engage your stakeholders early. You probably are going to have a lot of people who don't understand what you're talking about. You go in, if you ran into, one of our regulatory counsel and said, oh yeah, I'm going to put a fan page up on Facebook for Benicar, one of our products. They'd probably say to you, what's a fan page? What's Facebook? How many people are going to see it? Where's the fair balance information? Did you put this through ARC, which is our promotional review committee? And again, making sure that your review committee is cognizant of all of the different types of media that you're using. I think that Eileen and I were talking, and we weren't sure if it was Sanofi Aventis who has a separate social media promotional review committee. I think that that's the case. But again, something to think about if you do have those resources available to you in your company, to make sure that those people have a really in-depth knowledge of the types of media that you're looking for and what you're seeking to accomplish, so that when you go into the meeting, they don't say, I don't get this, I'm not going to approve it, I just don't understand it. And that's it. Sorry, I know I talk fast and I talk a lot. Questions? Yes?
Sorry, did you say that you were developing a public social media policy? Or were you talking
No, it's a corporate policy. It's not public.
Can I ask your opinion on pharma companies developing some kind of public version of that, similar to what they might have done with privacy policy?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good question. The question was what my opinion is on pharma companies developing a kind of an outward-facing social media policy. I think generally it's a good idea as long as it doesn't go overboard. I was reading I think AZ started a blog just this week, and their commenting policy is, no offense to anyone from AZ in the room, but the commenting policy says that, AZ owns the comments and they become the intellectual property of AstraZeneca. For me as an outsider, I don't know that I would comment on the page if I knew that was going to happen. I think there are better ways to go about it. But I definitely think that a commenting policy is a good idea. You obviously want to have the ability to monitor comments, not necessarily delete comments, because I think you always want to have that balance. But if someone uses profanity or uses, completely inappropriate language, you want to have the ability to edit that. You also want to warn people that if they do have an adverse event to report, that there is an alternate method for doing that. You can provide your medical affairs call center number or product number. And obviously, if you do receive an adverse event, you can report it through the normal channels. But I do think it's a good idea as long as it's a very general guideline and not discouraging the discussion. Because again, I think the idea is that you want to have that be a conversation and not just a mouthpiece. Yeah, Wendy.
Interested in your thoughts, Heather, on companies designating a social relations manager, somebody to speak on behalf of the company. Designated, empowered, highly trained person. How do you get the company comfortable with something like that, and who do you recommend that person be?
Okay, so the question was, am I in favor of having a social relationship or social media manager who is empowered to speak for the company? I will say that right now for my company, most of the social media impetus came from our corporate communications group. And we do have a senior manager in our corporate communications group who is kind of our social media guru right now. I've been working with her mostly from from the compliance perspective and the legal perspective, frankly, because again, I am a lawyer by background, even though it's not my technical job at the company, but I think that I probably understand the most of the lawyers there, not to toot my own horn, but again, that is one of the things where she's been trained, and has a lot of knowledge and is certainly actually working with some outside consultants to become more familiar. I think it's a great idea, but I think also that person has to not operate to the exclusion of the other groups in the company that are involved in your social media strategy. So, yeah, do you want to?
Representative from Sanofi
Oh.
Aventis here.
Yeah.
Hi, Heather. My name's Laura. I just wanted to help clarify that uncertainty. So we do have a cross-functional social media marketing task force, and initially that task force was concept reviewing ideas very specific to the brands.
Okay.
We have since published our internal guidelines, which now means that basically the review will go back to the brand RC, and the cross-functional team will no longer do concept review. Now that those guidelines are in place, each of the brands will have their own understanding and interpretation specific to those brands.
And have you trained the brand RCs on the specific social media guidelines, or is it just kind of each one adopts? Have they received any more in-depth training on those types of tools?
There will be. So,
Okay.
so the guidelines are brand new.
Right. No, and I think that makes
Yep.
sense. I mean, for my company, again, we're relatively small. We have one regulatory attorney and one regulatory affairs person who is devoted to each brand. Some of them more than one brand. So, again, if you have a larger company and you have the ability to do the separate committee, that's great. You can always do what Laura just described as well to make sure that your teams are trained.